Well, in the previous class we have seen the concept of stability, and we have seen the two notion of stability. One was a bounded input, bounded output type stability, and second one was asymptotic stability. I want to correct one of the mistakes in my previous class due to some preoccupied motion. Actually, while discussing asymptotic type of stability, I have written that input not equal to 0. I have written like this. Okay, but this asymptotic type of stability try to look at the system when input becomes 0. Correct? So instead of input not equal to 0, you should correct that input is equal to 0. While bounded input, bounded output type of stability investigate the system under a bounded input. Correct? The rest all discussion was same, but due to some mistake, I think there might be something running in my mind. That's why I have written input not equal to 0 while I was discussing all the things. Correct? Okay. So after that, we have seen that for linear time invariant type of system, these two notions, whether it may be Bigot stability or whether it may be asymptotic stability, these two notions are basically same. Okay, so you can approach with either of them. We have started with Bigot stability and we have proved the condition for the stability mathematically. Correct? And we also found that in mathematically also that for a given bounded output, your system output should be bounded. Correct? After that, we have seen some different location. Since this condition means bounded output, bounded input, bounded output condition was depend on the transfer function of the system. We have established the fact that your stability condition is going to be depend on the transfer function of the system, and transfer function is basically dependent on the roots of characteristic equation, or you can say the poles of your transfer function. So all in all, stability is going to be dependent on the location of poles of transfer function of the corresponding system. Correct? After that, we have seen some input, means some location of the roots or some location of the roots of your characteristic equation, or some poles of the characteristic equation in the particular zone of S-plane, and then we have seen the corresponding output, and we have also established the fact that if your roots lie in the left half of the S-plane, your system is stable one. If it is in the right half of the S-plane, your system is unstable one, and if it lies on y-axis, or you can say the j omega axis, then two cases arise. If you are having the repeated roots, if the roots are repeated on one another, you will get unstable as a condition, means your system will be unstable. And if the roots are non-repeated, means these are not one another, then your system will be marginally stable. Correct? So I have summarized this all this concept, as you can say, you can remember this as a decay concept. You should remember this diagram only. If you remember this diagram only, you will be able to answer. Means here, if your roots are repeated on j omega axis, your system will be unstable. If it is non-repeated, it is marginally stable. Correct? Okay. And if it is in left half, it is stable. If it is in right half, if it is then it is unstable. Now coming to another concept. One more concept is there. If your system, LTI system, is stable, okay, then there are two possible cases. I have already said that you are going to vary the parameters of the system, any of the parameters of the system. It may be gain of the system, it may be damping ratio of the system, it may be the natural frequency of the system. You are going to vary the parameters of the system to get the desired transient state specification. But these variations should be within the boundary restricted by the stability condition. Correct? Okay. Then there are two cases. One case is absolute stable. If your system, if you are going with respect to parameter, it is not that globally for any parameter. With respect to a parameter. Suppose you are going to say you are going to vary the gain k of the system, gain k, to achieve a particular transient state specification, and you found that while varying the gain k, you get that you can vary gain k from minus infinity to plus infinity. There is no issue of stability. Means your system is stable for any value of k, or it may be zeta also, or accordingly it may be other parameters also. But right now we are focusing on the gain k only. So if suppose the gain k is your parameter of the system in which you are interested, or which is tunable for you, which you can tune in the system, and you are by varying the gain k, you are trying to achieve some transient state specification, and if you find that for any value of k, you are free to set any value of k, there is no issue of stability with respect to gain k, then you will say your system is absolutely stable with respect to the parameter which is gain k. Correct? Well, now come to the second case, conditional stability. Once again, this conditional stability is also defined with respect to a parameter of the system which you are tuning, which you are varying. Okay. Suppose your system is stable only for a certain range of the parameter, certain band of the parameter restricted by a stability condition. We will see when we will solve the numerical examples on it. Suppose once again you are interested in gain k, and you are varying the gain k to achieve some transient state specification, maybe delay time or rise time, or we'll see how it's going to be dependent on this. Okay. So if you get the value of k, something like that, this k should be less than k max and should be more than k minimum. If you are getting certain range, beyond this range of k, your system becomes unstable, and also then you will say your system is conditionally stable. Means you are having this range only, k min to k max, for the variation of value of gain k to achieve your desired transient state specification. You are not free like this absolute stability. Correct? So these two are basic definitions. Now one more definition type of things is there. We also talked about relative stability of a system. The relative stability of a system is quantitative measure of how fast your transient die out. Suppose there are two systems whose system poles lie on the left half of the S plane. Then both of this system will be stable. Okay? But if you are talking about the relative stability, means which one will be more stable, then this concept of relative stability, try to answer this question is among these two stable systems, which one is more stable? It says that if the transient dies out faster than if the transient response for one system dies out faster than that of the other system, then the first system will be relatively more stable than that of the second system. Okay, so you should just write this relative stability. This is nothing but quantitative measure of how fast transient die out in the system. What is the meaning of that transient die out? Or you can say how fast your system settle down to your steady state value, or you can say the system for which the settling time is lesser will be relatively more stable. Correct? So, for example, you can show like this. J omega and sigma. And you know, if you are having just a root on sigma axis, your response will be exponential in nature. Correct? This is your C. Correct? For this. And suppose this is for system 1, and suppose system 2 is there. Here we are going to say your system 2 is there. For that system 2, there is only pole which lie on the sigma axis, but if it is far away from the J omega axis, then the response will be like this. For all other similar specifications. Correct? So you can note that here, when the roots are more away from the J omega axis, your system transient dies out fast. So you can say this particular system 2 is relatively more stable than system 1. Accordingly, you can also take example of complex roots also. For two systems are there here, 1 and 2. I am going to say this is A and B. This is system poles for system A. This is for B. If you know, you might have noticed that for complex conjugate roots, the nature of output is oscillatory in nature. If this complex conjugate root lies on the J omega axis, this oscillation will be of constant amplitude. If it is on the left half side of the S plane, your amplitude, the amplitude of oscillation will continue to decrease. And if it is right hand side of the S plane, the amplitude of oscillation will continue to increase. That is the unbounded case, correct? Okay. So here you can say this response will look like this. Okay. This is your CT and this is your P. And for this particular system, the nature will be similar, but the decay will be relatively slow for the corresponding event time. Okay, so you can say system A is relatively more stable than the system B. Correct? This is the basically concept of relativism. Okay. Now, we have established that fact that only the poles of the given system at hand is going to decide the stability of the system. Means if you will be anyhow able to find the location of the poles in S plane, then you will be able to say, based upon the previous decay concept, that whether your system is going to be absolutely stable, means stable, or unstable, or marginally stable. Correct? So try to notice that if your system is having first order, it is well and good, you can find the pole. If your system is having two order, based upon the quadratic equation, you will find the pole once again. If it is third order, then you will apply some hit and trial method or your calculator may have. But if it will become fourth order, fifth order, sixth order, seventh order, 10th order, and in general, nth order, so what will do? You know that the system, if the system pole lies on the left half of the S plane, the system is going to be stable. But how to find the roots? Because it is difficult for higher order equations to solve analytically, though you can solve with the help of computer, but it is difficult analytically to solve. So the solution to this type of problem, to finding the stability in case of higher order system, was answered by Routh-Eric polynomial. Mr. Routh and Mr. Hurwitz have given a table for it, that if you are going to, if some condition based upon that table is going to be satisfied, you will be able to find the stability of the system. Okay? So we are going to start what? The next topic we are going to start is Routh-Hurwitz method. Hurwitz method. ठीक है? This method is also known as just Routh stability criterion. Okay. Now we are going to start with a polynomial which is of means denominator polynomial or characteristic equation which is in general of nth order, and n may be anything, means any natural number 1, 2, 3, 4, like that. Okay. So suppose you are having a characteristic equation given by Qs or characteristic polynomial Qs is somewhat like a naught s to the power n plus a1 s to the power n minus 1 up to a n minus 1 s plus a n is equal to 0. This in general, this is a generalized characteristic polynomial for a given system. If the order will be second, you will put the value of n is equal to 2, where a naught, a1, a n minus 1, a n in general ai are the coefficients or the constants. Okay. Then this particular Routh stability criterion says that you have to construct a table like this. Okay. So I am going to construct a table. Based upon this table, Routh will impose some criteria. So this table will be constructed like this. You have to start. You should start with the highest power of n, s to the power n, then s to the power n minus 1, then s to the power n minus 2, likewise s to the power n minus 3 up to s to the power 0, means it is 1. And what you are going to do is you will start for this point, this. Okay, n. You will start for n, and then you will take a jump of 1. So what will be after n0? It will be here a2, s to the power n minus 2, like this. Okay. So after a0, you will write a2. Then what? a4, a6. Means for to remember, you can write like this. Here it is you can say increase in 2, and here you can say increase in 1. Correct? Means you are going to start with n0 as a pivot, and you will take the alternate value, alternate coefficient in the first row. Then again you will start your second row with a1. Means this a1 is left out, this a3 is left out, likewise. So you will start with a1. What after a1? Same procedure will be followed. a1, then a3, then a5, likewise. Then you can say a7. This is your row s to the power n minus 1. Correct? First two row of your Routh stability criterion or the Routh-Hurwitz method can be constructed just with the help of the given coefficient. What you have to do? You have to start with the first coefficient, means the coefficient of the highest power of s, and then you have to take the alternate coefficients. If it is not available, you have to set that value 0. Correct? And then you will start with the second one, then jump 1, 1, 1, like this. Then the third row will be like this: b1, b2, b3, likewise, and fourth row c1, c2, c3, and like this. So the question is how to find the value of these coefficients b1, b2, and c1, c2, likewise. Correct? So They have also provided the method for this. They say that the value of B1 means this B1, first element of the third row, will be given by this multiplication A1 multiplied by A2 minus A0 multiplied by A3 divided by this A1. Means first you have to write like here first, so that you will do this multiplication first and this multiplication later. Means your B1 will be given by A1 A2, correct, minus A0 A3 divided by A1. Should I repeat it? If you have to find this B1, you will start with the two rows which are above to it. Then what you do? You will multiply, cross multiplication. First you will multiply A1 with A2. That's why I have written first. Then minus A0 A3 and divided by this pivot element, which is just above. What about B2? You will do the similar multiplication. These two elements are not going to be changed. Okay, these two elements will remain as such, and this pivot element will also remain as such. So for finding the value of B2, what you will do? You will multiply A1 A4. This is first. Then A0 A5. This is your second multiplication, divided by once again this pivot element A1. So pivot element for a construction of particular row is not going to be changed. Okay, accordingly you can say B2 will be A1 A4 minus A0 A5 divided by A1. Correct? And similarly, you will be able to find B3 and whatever it may be there. Okay. And if you have found the value of B1, B2, B3, the similar task you can perform to find the value of C1. The difference is that then you will start with this row and this pivot, this column and this pivot element, and once again cross multiplication for this and this divided by C1 for this. Correct? So likewise you have to construct a route array with the given characteristic equation. Then after constructing the route array, it says that the necessary and sufficient condition for the system to be stable, that there should be no any sign change in the first column of the route array. Means if it is positive, all are positive, and if it is all are negative, then your system will be a stable one. If there is a sign change, suppose the value of A0 is positive, but this A1 is negative, and once again rest all others, say it is positive, this is negative, then rest all other are positive. Okay, then from here to here one sign change, and once again from here to here one sign change. So there are two sign change in the first column of your route array. Rest there is no sign change, no sign change, no sign change. So number of change in sign in the first column of the route array signifies that the system is unstable with the two poles lies in the right half of the S-plane. Means number of sign change is equal to number of poles which lies in the right half of the S-plane.